Have you ever met a walking headache? Those types of people who just don't get it and need it really spelled out for them, and maybe they even need a little handhold. Today on rLounge, we give you the medicine you need to get rid of that constant migraine. Up first, keep your friends close and your wallets closer. Friend wants to use me as her backup ATM. Next month, I, female, am going away on vacation with a longtime friend, female. We're going to the Caribbean for 5 nights. It is not an all-inclusive, so we will be responsible for paying for food, drinks, and any activities. She asked me how much I was going to bring in cash. I said $300 cash, plus debit and credit cards. She told me she's going to bring $300 cash, but no debit or credit cards. She said she is on a budget, and $300 is her limit. I explained that comes around to only $60 a day. This is not one of the cheaper Caribbean islands, so food and drink alone won't leave her with much left over. I reminded her that she needs to factor in cabs, incidentals, or any activities we may decide to do. And you never know if an emergency will come up where she will need money. She says to me, "That's why I have you," and started to laugh. That pissed me off to no end. I tell her that we are both adults who are responsible for our own selves. It would be one thing if she lost her purse and needed money. I would float her money before she even had time to ask. But to purposely use me as her backup ATM is not going to work. I told her now that I know what she is up to, I'm not going to go along with it. If she runs out of money, she will just be flat out hungry. She needs to bring her cards with her for her own good. She is now telling me I am too harsh and she will bring extra money, but no cards. I told her to do what she wants, but if there's an emergency, she is on her own. What does the community think to all this? Hippie Witch says, we will need an update for when she spends all her cash in the first 2 days and starts begging. Orochimaru says, my friend brought a jar of peanut butter and a bag of pot to a 3-day music festival and didn't pitch in for gas or anything of ours he ate. He is not a friend anymore. C. Okra says, a friend of mine's now husband did something similar at a campout. Brought a sleeping bag, peanut butter, bread, and some tools. Difference is, he was really helpful around. He was just broke, and it was better than dealing with whatever was at home for the weekend. He went fishing with a freaking stick and some hooks and line he had in a mint tin and fed almost everyone catfish. Yes, he had a license, and I say almost everyone because I can't eat catfish. But I had my own meal, and he did offer me some. He also set up my tent after I reached my limit and was crying with frustration. I lost a part and somehow had the instructions for a similar but different model of tent, even though it was brand new. And 2 years later, when he had a job, he brought a bunch of food and drinks and treated everyone to repay our kindness the first year. Which was funny because our kindness was literally just letting him sit in someone's back seat and drink some of my sodas. He brought his own water kit. I didn't mention that, but he did, and he was generous with sharing it with the person whose kit got dropped on the trail and wasn't retrievable. The barbecue and booze he provided probably cost him 20 times what my sodas and the spices for the catfish did us. He's a good dude. Oh, and you reminded me by mentioning peanut butter, because dang, he did bring peanut butter. It was like a gallon of it. Update. Thanks everyone for your feedback and suggestions. It truly did save the vacation. I'll hit the highlights. Some of you said that the hotel would want a credit card on file from the person who made the reservation. My friend was the one who booked the vacation. She put the whole thing on her credit card because she wanted the card points. I told her because the reservation was booked through a third-party app, the hotel would need the original card used to make the reservation. So she was on the hook to bring her credit card. I have no idea if this is true or not, but it sounded good based on what you all commented. Ha! She was not happy that her own greed got her. Huh, but at least she brought a credit card. Others mentioned that she was going to sulk, and sulk she did. When we got to the airport, I told her I was not going to spend the vacation in her misery, so let's hash it out right now. She said that my tone was very rude, as if I was accusing her of trying to mooch off of me. She was. I told her to put herself in my shoes. She was deliberately not being responsible and told me to my face I was her backup plan and laughed about it. It made me feel used and put upon. She apologized and I apologized for being so harsh. Some of you said she would try to be content with cutting corners. Cabs were prohibitively expensive on the island and they didn't take credit cards. So she looked up how to take the local buses. I was fine with that until we waited 45 minutes in the heat for a bus to take us to the mall. Island time. Yep, we only took cabs after that. A few mentioned that she would go through her cash in the first 2 days. You were close. 2.5 days. There were several markets with local jewelry and crafts that she absolutely loved, and they only took cash. So she ran through her money rather quickly. She only brought her credit card, not her debit card. So, as someone suggested, I made her Zelle me right then and there the money I took out of the ATM for her. She paid for the exchange and ATM fees. She tried it with the meals. She ordered something big and wanted to split the bill evenly. Normally, I would not nitpick about that, but I just didn't want her to feel like she still got one over on me in any way. Since she used her credit card for meals, to save the cash she had, I paid what I owed in cash, and she paid the rest, her higher portion, with her credit card. Overall, we had a good time. We did a few excursions, had shopping and beach time, and relaxed. She even told me it was a good thing she brought her credit card. Things only got weird when I asked her to Zelle me right then and there at the ATM before I gave her the cash, but she knew why I was being so hard-nosed about it. Let's get one quick comment. MW240Z says, "Awesome update. That said, I wouldn't travel with her again." The OP replies, "I wouldn't travel with her again. Absolutely not. Ha!" Wow. I'm wondering if she's like this all the time, OP. Does she try to mooch off of you if you're just out and about on a regular day? It's interesting that she thought she could actually get away with something like that. Things like cash can totally ruin a relationship. Money makes people hungry. I'm sorry you had to be on your toes with a leech in paradise. You're right not to travel with her again. She's not worth the hassle. Do you know someone like this? Let us know in the comments below. Up next, a man who needs to take his training wheels off. Entitled coworker finally gets the boot. I hope. G'day all. So, this one has been quite the saga. Some backstory for myself. As the name suggests, I'm prior service Naval Aviation Warfare Technician for Uncle Sam's misguided children for 8 years right out of high school until 2 years ago. The skills I learned there let me get this job lickety-split after getting out, which meant I got to skip the year-long process of working the production lines around here and jump straight to the test department. I mention this because that lifestyle still heavily influences me to this day and leaves me to be a bit rough around the edges at times, and I can act a bit harshly when someone screws up, especially when that screw-up can lead to someone getting hurt or killed like it can when you're working around several hundred volts or several thousand amps. Now on to the cavalcade of dip crappery. T got the job here because my company and ECPI have an entry-level program where they hire graduates so they can start applying their learning. How a 3D printer lab guy like T thought this was a good idea, I haven't the foggiest. I didn't like T from the get-go, mostly because of the scuttlebutt around the office about him. His supervisor on the production line, whom I've got good rapport with, seemed all too happy to be rid of him. That didn't bode well. However, I gave him the benefit of the doubt and started giving him the lowdown on the hoedown on how test operates. Months later, we're all sick of him. I wasn't the only one to practically plead with our manager to cut his strings, but we've put a lot of time, effort, and money into training him. We can't just cut him loose. Take the L and bite the bullet, my dude. For F's sake. Boy's gonna get somebody killed. All he did was complain. If you weren't sitting on him to do work, he would just be cruising Discord on his work computer. He'd constantly grouse about outside work problems to us like we're his therapists. The works. Not to mention, he'd come up with the most asinine reasons to skip out of work whenever he could. Oh, my Tesla's only got 80 miles left on its charge. I have to go home and charge it. I've got a haircut appointment at noon. My parents aren't home and the mail has to be checked. I'm not just feeling it today. All that crap, mother effer. I was holding my breath waiting on a deliberation that'd see me incarcerated or left free. And my best friend offered himself at 2 a.m. Where was I both these incredibly mentally strangulating instances? Sitting my happy butt right here at my cart, doing my job the best I could. Because outside problems are outside. What in the hot and crispy Kentucky Fried F makes you so special? We have to wear special uniforms that are shock and flame retardant, and he didn't like them because he's like 300 pounds at like 5'7", so he looked like an overfilled beach ball. Relevant because he let that also affect his work. None of us wanted to work with him because we were tired of having to jump back halfway through testing because he messed something up, and it'd take about 10 times of Barney-style breaking down something for him to finally halfway understand it. Even the most mild of criticisms had him visibly deflate like a kicked puppy, and he would be useless for the rest of the day afterwards. He still lives with his parents, not judging him for that, but he lets their relationship mess with his head, and a messed up head around here is a death sentence. Whenever they fought or said something to him he didn't like, he was moody and made the pointed, "I have something I want to talk about, so ask me about it so I can unload," looks, and mannerisms. I'm a patient man. I understand the job is complicated, and I'd rather you ask me 100 questions than one question 100 times. But that's precisely what T would do, and we all suspected he just wanted us to do the work for him under the guise of watching and learning. After months of this, and a few times of blowing up a unit because he wasn't paying attention properly, one of which had me standing right in front of it, he was given the boot from test to go work in the circuit card lab. That was a pleasant respite of about 2 weeks before he came right back, to a collective groan of displeasure from us in test. He hadn't gotten any better and was still just as unable to leave irrelevant things outside when he came to work, and still very easily distracted. He once came to me in the middle of me being elbow deep in the guts of a unit to ask me if a Glock was a good pistol to get. No red flags there, let me tell you. And also, how's your work going? I told him to get his head out of his butt and focus on the task at hand. I was just trying to make sure I wasn't making a crappy choice. Oh, crappy? Like the opinion of your work ethic around here? Because you're perpetuating that stigma by talking about guns instead of working on the unit you're assigned to. Here I thought magic was only in fairy tales, yet here you are with your head up your butt, your foot in your mouth, and your nose in my business, you effing wizard. When I get agitated, my twang comes out. Now go try and rectify that before I lodge my boot so far up your butt you taste what's on the underside. A few months later, after he got back, after yet another instance of me picking up working on a unit after him and having to redo the entire test procedure, I got fed up and let my chevrons pop out my collar once more. This man-child had been babied his whole life, and maybe, just maybe, if more people hadn't coddled him so dang hard, I wouldn't have had to give him a dressing down so thorough that his butt was about 20 pounds of hamburger meat. Before it's brought up, no, I'm not a superior, but I'm a firm believer in policing your peers, much to my manager's distress. He always warns me that talk like that'll get me in front of HR. I say, effing fight me. I ain't a a-hole until you make me be one. And any claims of making a hostile work environment can be countered by the fact that this window-licking mouth breather comes in and makes a hazardous workplace by proximity because of his lackadaisical methods, in spite of all attempts to make it otherwise. I ain't gonna let my team get fragged because boo-hoo boy here wasn't paying attention to his work and thinking about protogen or something. Once, he groused about the raise we were all supposed to be getting because it was a merit-based system of evaluation, and he knew he wasn't getting bubkiss. You'd think some self-reflection like that would have kicked his butt into gear, but no. Another time, he asked me how much it cost to join the military. That's right, you read that correctly. He inquired to the joining cost of an all-voluntary military force. The reason, you ask? Because his VR chat. I know because he told me. Girlfriend's emotionally abusive brother was being mean, and getting him into the military was their solution to be rid of him. I told him he had no comprehension of how absolutely asinine he just sounded asking me that question, and it was quite frankly insulting. I reminded him that I'm the absolute worst person to come to with it, because unlike everyone else in this scenario, I'm not a freaking floor mat, and he needs to sack up, find where they're hiding up in his guts, and handle the problem rather than pawning it off. Also, it's 6 o'clock in the dang morning. No good morning, not even hello? Just gonna jump right into the F-boy antics? Tight. Pros and cons will reflect. We come now to the finale. Evidently, Mommy and Daddy were fighting the night before. He came into work last week all mopey and sad hound dog faced and confided in my buddy Jay, another prior service Marine. That's right, the two absolute worst people to try and seek out sympathy from were his two target individuals to release his woes towards. Jay told him to go home, and then proceeded to let management know the skinny. To his great surprise, T wondered why his ID wouldn't let him into the building the next day. You'd think that'd tip him off to something, and then was promptly told to leave when he was spotted, on the grounds of management had debarred him from the facility until he gets his crap together. Finally! Now the sounds the horn of Gabriel and the pearly light of the heavens doth shine down upon us. I don't like having a cover on my grape, but I will manifest one just to consume it wholeheartedly if they allow him to come back. Yikes. This guy definitely went into the wrong line of work. From the sounds of it, he's looking for some serious attention, but he's not getting the type of positive attention he wants. Moreover, I think you're right, OP. People like this have been coddled or have been seriously ignored, and because of that, they try to overcompensate. A job is a job, no matter what, and if you can't take your job seriously, especially at a place where your actions can have severe consequences, then who the heck are you? It's important to take responsibility and pride in what you do. This man is still very much a boy. Update. Per her request, top brass in my company singled me out to be the spearhead leader on testing a new type of unit because my crap's squared away, and when a unit gives me trouble, I take it as a personal insult on my honor and refuse to lose to an inanimate object. After about a dozen of these units are under my belt, Boss Man wants me to start training some of the others up on how to run them to lighten my load. My teaching policy is that you're over my shoulder the entire time during testing one unit, and then I step off to the side to provide on support while you solo a unit. I'm also present to answer questions, give feedback, and reprimand you when you're being a mouth breather as necessary. Everybody else I taught this way. They loved it, and from the feedback they gave me, really appreciated it. Not T. No, not him. If you weren't by his side, holding his hand the whole dang time, he would skip over the entire sections of the test procedure, which is a black and white, cut and dry, written in English Word document that you're to follow step by step. So he'd run into a problem, call me over. I'd look at the test procedure, look at the unit, and find that he'd left the configuration in a certain way that's supposed to be altered by this stage of testing, or other such problem that could have been mitigated had he actually read the instructions. So, for the uninitiated, industry standard for these kinds of things are 3 phases for the transformers, A, B, C, which are color-coded, mind you. If you hook the wrong phase up to the wrong phase, it will explode, which is why circuit breakers are a thing. There were 8 said circuit breakers for this type of unit, which are hooked up to the test station that provides power via A, B, and C phase cables, labeled with brown, orange, and yellow tape respectively. Well, this particular type of unit is to be hooked up CBA, which is clearly labeled inside the unit. T had not only looked them up regular ABC style, but also did so in a way that the cabinet door on the unit could not close, which is a safety hazard. I hooked them up by removing the side panels that align with the breakers so that way, if one of them explodes, it does so not pointed at me. So I gently point out to him, "Hey, you set these up wrong." "What?" "Yeah. Read the labels on the bus bars. They're CBA, not ABC. And why is the door on this unit?" "To cover the breakers." I attempt to close the door and watch it as it doesn't because of the spaghetti soup of cables in the way. "See the problem?" Cue sad puppy getting smacked on the nose deflation. "Yeah." "No big deal. Just swap A and C cables around and feed everything through the side and you're good." Thinking the issue was resolved, oh how foolish of me, I stand aside and let him go. Time passes and I poke my head back into the situation because I hate micromanaging and micromanagers, and I notice that the LED HUD screen is blinking red, when at this point it should be green. "T, why's your screen red?" I start tickety-tapping away through the menus and ferret out the problem. Low power. I look and all the breakers are open, meaning they're off. "T, did you not do phase rotation?" This is very, very bad. You hook up a little meter to the phase bars and make sure everything is in sync between your setup and the unit. This is done by turning on a breaker, looking at the meter to confirm proper rotation and synchronicity, turning off the breaker, and then repeating the process down the line. Not having this done can, and did, lead to explosive errors. "No." "Why the F not?" "Well, it's not in the test procedure." Facepalm of 1,000 disgruntled technicians. This is not your first PDU you've run. When in the history of ever have you not done phase rotation? Be danged if it's not in the test procedure. That is an LCP that you know is a thing. Stop everything you're doing right now and do phase rotation immediately. Cue the butthurt of 1,000 F-boys getting called out on their crap. T huffs and puffs like an angsty teenager over towards where the phase rotation meter is hooked up and picks it up, thrusting it at me. "The display isn't even on." "That's because none of your breakers are closed to give it power, you gormless troglodyte. Now check your effing attitude and do your dang job the right way before I have you mop the rain." Cue more huffing and butthurt. Now, remember how I said you're supposed to turn on, look, turn off the breakers one at a time? Well, imagine my surprise when T just starts slamming breakers closed and he gets to the one he set up incorrectly, again, in a different way. This one was CAB, and with the other 3 breakers powered on before it, when that one was turned on, it immediately exploded, with me, without any of my PPE on, standing right there. I was unharmed, if a little flash blinded, but the same could not be said for the breaker, the circuit card attached to the breaker, nor the test station itself. I was furious. T immediately starts to apologize for his effery, but I shut him down hard. Told him, "Pack your crap and go sit in the corner. You're done. Do not touch this unit or this station again. Get out of my sight. You've disappointed me for the last time." He slinks away in shame, and I spend the next 3 hours after my shift ended correcting his F up. Boss man pulls me aside before I go and say that this was the last nail in the coffin for T. He was out of test. I told him that T should never have been allowed in test in the first place, and it's about dang time. Harsh, perhaps, but I just had my life flash before my eyes because of this kid who rode on the bus with the schnozberry-flavored Windex. He comes in the next morning all contrite and apologetic, saying he'll do better next time. Next time? Next time? There won't be a next time. Why in the heck are you even here? What do you mean? I mean, you're not in test anymore. Yesterday was the last straw. Management is tired of you wasting time, money, and effort and wants you out of here. Talk to Bossman about it. Get your crap and pound sand. That's not fair. Not fair? No, not fair is the rest of us having to put up with you the past couple of months because you can't handle being in test. Now, go out in the forest, find the exact tree that made the oxygen you used to make that thought, and apologize to it for wasting all its hard work too. He had nothing to say, and very quickly and huffily packed his things and shuffled back to the circuit card lab. You got a point there, OP. Your job isn't to babysit. You're not paid to fix someone else's problems for 3 hours when you have your own stuff to do. I can understand how frustrating that would be. It's hard to see someone make mistakes like this at a job you take so seriously. If you have to perform at a certain level each day, and this guy refuses to do so, what makes him so special? The bar is raised for everyone, and you're only as strong as your weakest link. Have you ever been in OP's position? What about the other way around? Share your stories with us in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content or our channel, share that with us. We would love to hear from you.